So we know Tennessee basketball is not playing for a Final Four this weekend like it was last weekend. So what now for Tennessee basketball? What now for Rick Barnes? What now for this roster? Going to talk some Tennessee hoops and a whole lot more with your Friday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Happy Friday morning. Happy unofficial start to your weekend. Thanks for getting us started. Your tailgate, if you will, here on a Friday morning, listening to us, watching us wherever you get your podcasts for free, and making us your first listen. Everydayers couldn't do it without you. Appreciate you guys as always. Got a fun show coming up here today in a matter of seconds. Going to invite my buddy Grant Ramey over at Volquest.com to talk a little Tennessee basketball, tying a bow on the season and deciphering what's next. Some names of the transfer portal, all that and more. It's coming up here in segment 1. ESPN has put out an NFL mock draft for quarterbacks. And we're going to discuss where Joe Milton comes in that listing in segment number 2, and then get you set for the baseball series at Auburn this weekend. Tennessee is a top 5 team across all major publications in the rankings, and it's got a challenge this weekend at Auburn. We'll get you set for that. All that and more coming up here on your Friday show. But first, a little Tennessee hoops talk. Here's Grant Ramey. Grant, it's been a couple of days since Tennessee bowed out in the NCAA Tournament. A couple of days to kind of think on it, digest on it. Your overall thoughts on Tennessee's loss to Purdue in the Elite Eight game. I know a lot of talk about Zach Edey, lane violations, the lack of fouls, all that and more. But overall, Tennessee comes up just short in a really good basketball game to finish off a really, really special season.
Yeah, it's bittersweet because you got as far as you've gotten in program history, and you'd only been there once before. And it's kind of bitter because it's tantalizingly close to a Final Four and a trip to Phoenix. And Purdue's the better basketball team, probably. I think that showed the way they played and what they can do with Zach Edey. And I think two things can be true at once. I think Zach Edey and Purdue can play a winning brand of basketball, and it can be completely infuriating for other fan bases and other teams to watch and to take part in. Like, to dump it down there 40 times and for him to shoot 22 free throws, and the number of free throws he's shot and the number of fouls he's drawn this season. He drew 16 in 39 minutes against Tennessee. I think Purdue was called for 12 fouls. Like, he's a hard guy to officiate. I don't think college basketball officials have any idea how to officiate him. I've never asked Rick about this, but after the game, he mentioned there are some fouls there's some things we have to call whether we like it or not. I think that might have been a reference to the 3-second call, and they feel like he camps out in the lane, and that's really difficult to deal with. But all said and done, it's an insane season for Tennessee basketball. Really fun group to watch from start to finish. And the kind of the pill that's hard to swallow is it's going to be really hard to get back there because you only get 1 year of Dalton Knecht, and there's not another Dalton Knecht out in the transfer portal. You can try to replace his production, but he's a once in a kind of generation kind of scorer, as we saw throughout the season, and the stuff that he could do. So you wonder how hard it's going to be to get back there, but it was quite an accomplishment for Tennessee to get there. And it felt like, late in the game, Dalton hits that corner 3 to tie, and you're thinking, man, this might happen. But that 7'4", 300-pound guy got in the way.
Yeah, I mean, I've been all over, earlier in the week talking, lack of fouls, 3-second violations, all that. And, Purdue fans have found this show, and they've kind of, littered the comments and all that. And that's fine. I mean, that's what it's here for. But if I'm Purdue, I'm not changing anything. If you're not getting called for 3 seconds, don't leave the lane. He pitched a tent down there and didn't leave. So if you're not getting called for it, don't do anything about it. I mean, he's doing what he's supposed to do. So,
it's also worth noting that he's a really good basketball player.
Yeah.
He's not just a good basketball player because he's 7'4" and 300 pounds. I've watched 7-footers who are not good at basketball, and you wonder how they're not good at it. He's got great touch. He knows where to get his spots, or he knows where to get the basketball. He knows what to do with it when he gets it. He's got great touch around the rim. He rebounds like a madman. Like, he's a good basketball player, and he's extremely difficult to face. I think he's also just extremely difficult to officiate.
Yep, he is. So now that it's over, 1 year wonder, boy, was it fun, Dalton Knecht. Didn't get to the Final Four, but Tennessee did get to the Elite Eight. It is the most accomplished team in program history. We can have the debate on if it's the best team or whatever. But Dalton Knecht is going to be a Tennessee legend, yeah?
100%. I mean, to score, he's second all time in program history in single season scoring with 780. Only Allen Houston had more with 806 in his sophomore season. Dalton probably could have passed him up if he didn't have that ankle injury in November at North Carolina, or for Tennessee got to Phoenix and played a couple more games. It's going to be impossible to replace him. You're going to try to replace his production as much as you can, but there's only one Dalton Knecht, and you're not going to strike gold like that in the transfer portal every single year. That's the part where it was like, as the season crept on and March got here, it was like, man, just enjoy this while it lasts, because when it's over, it's going to suck, because you got to go back to the reality of you don't have Dalton Knecht on your team anymore. And you're not, you don't have that 21.7 points per game and that 25 points per game in SEC play. So you're going to have to try to find his production in the portal. You're going to have to try to replace a couple fifth-year seniors in Santi and Josiah. You're going to have to, you're going to do a lot of stuff to build around Zakai Ziegler and Jonas Sadu and Jemai Meshach and, whatever this roster looks like heading into the summer.
Yeah, I was going to say that kind of leads me to my next thing. You not only lose Dalton, you lose two guys that embody Tennessee basketball and know how to play for Rick Barnes in Santi and Josiah. How do you go about replacing that production? Who are some names? Who are some targets to be on the lookout for in the transfer portal? Again, not finding the next Dalton Knecht, but just trying to find some guys to replace the production.
Right. I think Chaz Lanier's been a very popular name, the North Florida guard. He's a Nashville native. He's an Innsworth product. He scores it pretty well. He scored it pretty well this season. I think he averaged 19, 20, something like that a game. A kid out of Hofstra, Darlinstone Dubar, an incredible name, a pretty elite scorer as well.
All-name team.
Those are two names that have been a little bit more popular than the rest, it feels like. Belmont's Cade Tyson, or Tyson Cade. I've had that backwards in my head a million times, so I'm just going to say it both ways and cover my bases.
Do your job, Grant. You know all about this guy. Come on.
He's another big man that he shot it really well. He shot 46% from the three-point line on something like 172 attempts. I can remember those numbers, but I can't remember if his first name's his last name or if his last name's his first name. But Tennessee's been in contact there, and so is Kentucky and North Carolina and Duke. So he's a talented kid, and you're going to have to you got a lot of competition for him. But maybe being in-state helps Tennessee there. So there are a few names out there, but it feels like those first two I mentioned, Lanier and Dubar, those feel like a couple more of the popular names. We'll see where it goes, and those are guys where maybe if you get a couple of them, they can team up to kind of replace that scoring you're losing in Dalton Knecht, and we'll see what happens there.
Jonas had a tough Sweet 16 and Elite 8. He had a really great year for Tennessee. Will he go through the NBA draft process and come back, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think Rick encourages his juniors to go through the draft process. If I was Jemai Meshach, I would do it. If I was Zakai Ziegler, I would do it. And it's not so much as you think you're ready to go now and make that jump. It's to go through the process and experience it and learn what teams are going to put you through and learn what interviews are going to be like and learn. It's basically getting a first shot at a job interview and then getting to go a year later and do it again and figure out and get that feedback and figure out what you need to learn from with your game. And Jonas, it's hard to not get lost in what he did or what he did not do, I guess, in the NCAA tournament and think it was a bad season. He was second team All-SEC. I think he has potential to be first team All-SEC, one of the better big men in the conference next season. If he does come back, he's got to get a lot stronger. That was pretty evident in the NCAA tournament, what we saw from Tobe Awaka, what we saw from even JP Estrella, and the strength they used against Zach Edey and against Texas as well helped them a ton. I think that's where Jonas has to grow so much and use whatever happened in the last couple of weeks as motivation to be a first-team All-SEC center next season, because Tennessee really needs to build around him and Zakai Ziegler.
And obviously this day and age, it's not just about going and getting guys from the portal. It's about seeing if you have any defectors and, not start rumors or anything. But I mean, if you act like nobody's going to leave, you're kind of naive in this day and age.
Right.
Who were some of those names? I'll say them: Freddie DeLeon, DJ Jefferson. Kind of where do they stand right now in terms of, do you think they'll be a part of the basketball program next year?
Freddie, might be surprised to see him stick around. I mean, it's almost like you can go down the stat sheet and look at the minutes played and look at who these kids were coming into the program, and it makes you wonder what's going on and if they're going to stick around, because kids aren't all that patient these days, and they don't have to be because of the transfer portal, because of NIL, and they can go out and they can explore their options. With Freddie, it just never seemed to click. I don't know if it was the defensive end, if it was an effort issue or whatever it was. He got his opportunities kind of here and there, especially in the middle of the season, and then it just kind of never materialized. He gave them a couple good possessions in the Sweet 16 against Creighton, and Rick applauded him after the game for that. But at this point, based on how highly rated Freddie was coming out of high school, I would kind of be surprised. I think if he either comes back or doesn't enter the portal. DJ Jefferson, he's a guy who redshirted last season and then didn't play any this season outside of the first game against Tennessee Tech back in November. But the stuff I've heard on him is I think he might stick around a little bit and see what happens. So I'm kind of not sure on him at this point, but I think Freddie would be the one to start in terms of if you're watching for Tennessee players who might be entering the portal. I think I would start there and see what happens after that.
Grant, Jemai Mashack, it's not going to be seamless. Nobody's going to be, the spitting image of what Josiah was, but it feels like Jemai Mashack can kind of roll into that stretch four, that small four. DJ Jefferson, is he kind of in that conversation as well?
I think he's more of a wing. I think he's more closer to a 3 in terms of them being able to get down there and play the 4 and bang around a little bit with the big guys. I do think Jemai is the leading kind of candidate to be that Josiah replacement. And Jemai doesn't have a ton to prove because we've seen what he can be defensively. He can be one of the best perimeter defenders in college basketball. We've seen him improve his scoring a lot in his jump shot. From his freshman and sophomore to junior year. So I think he's the one that stands to make more of a leap. I think DJ's more of a wing guy, more of an offensive-oriented guy who's always going to have to get caught up on the defensive end. That's where he had to make the most progress coming out of high school. Maybe he hasn't made enough progress there yet because we haven't seen him get on the floor, obviously, to this point. So if he does stick around, I think he would be more of your wing scoring option, and I think Jemai could be a guy that goes down there and forward and plays that stretch position.
And before we say goodbye, tell me about 4-star Alabama center Dwayne Brown. It's going to be between Tennessee and Mississippi State. That's coming up later this month, April the 20th. Where do you think Tennessee stands there?
I like their shots right now. I don't think it's 100%, or I don't know the answer either way 100%. I think Tennessee feels good about where they are in that recruitment. I think they've kind of prioritized him. I think they like him a lot. He's a huge body. I don't have his measurables around me right now, but he's 6'9" and pretty heavy. So he's a big kid. He's a big body. He's what you need. He's a 4-star on the On3 ratings in the 2025 class. So it would be a good start to the class to pull him out of Alabama and beat out Mississippi State to get him on April 20th.
6'9", 235, class of 2025. We know Bishop Boswell currently the only commit coming in for the class of 2024. Could that change over the course of the offseason?
Right now, it feels like it's going to be more transfer portal heavy than anything else. Never say never because the guy Ziegler was an August, addition to that signing class, and Tobe Awaka was a July addition to that signing class. So they're not opposed to going through the summer process and trying to find guys that they feel like maybe are underrated or overlooked or whatever. And if they like their game, they'll take a flyer on them. But right now it feels like I think the emphasis is going to be you need a couple scorers out of the portal. You might need a big man out of the portal to add down there to your post depth. So I think the emphasis is going to be on the portal, and we'll see if any new prep prospects, any new names pop up over the summer.
Feel like I've thought, last question, the last 4 questions, but this will be the last question. Feels like Tennessee's front court's going to be really good next year. Knowing that it's going to be tough to get back to the Elite Eight and all that, but Jonas, Tobe, JP, what he did this year. I know they like Kate Phillips a lot. Feels like the strength of this team, and you still have Zakai and Jemai and all these other guys, feels like the strength of this team might be that front court.
It does, and I was extremely impressed with JP Estrella and the minutes he gave them in the Elite Eight. I mean, that's the biggest game of the season against the toughest competition you faced all season. And he goes in there as a freshman, and he battles. And he had a couple of great possessions where he set a screen and got Dalton open for a 3, and then he went down and got a stop on Zach Edey. I mean, that's huge for his development moving forward. And he gave him some good stuff earlier in the tournament as well. And what you got from Tobe was extremely impressive. Tobe had a really bad day in the SEC tournament against Mississippi State, and then he turns around and has 3 or 4 really good games in the NCAA tournament. So all 3 of those guys, if all 3 of those guys are back, Estrella, Adu, and Awaka, that's a really good feel. And then Cade Phillips was a guy who was so impressive during the summer that Tennessee coaches took that redshirt tag off him and played him a little bit early in the season. I think they have high hopes for him, kind of a John Fulkerson kind of esque upside with him in terms of how he plays the game and what they think he can do. athletically. So if that's the case, they got a lot of good players there. They need to keep them and develop them and see what they turn into.
Tennessee basketball enters offseason mode. Grant Ramey enters offseason mode. Get some sleep, okay?
I'll do it, of course.
Always appreciate Grant Ramey stopping by the show. Follow his work at Volquest.com. He does a whole lot of it. And on the X at Grant Ramey. More to come here on this Friday edition of Locked On Vols. Did you know that even if you have a 401k retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April the 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA and a 3% match. This offer is good through April the 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as a Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for a 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is registered broker-dealer. More to come on Locked On Vols as we talk quarterbacks in the NFL Draft and Joe Milton. That's next here on Locked On Vols. All right, guys, it feels like we blinked and we're already in the month of April. You know, the football season came and gone. Basketball season's come and gone. Spring practice is almost over. And here at the end of this month, we're going to be taking part in the NFL, not the NFL Combine. That's already come and gone. Pro days have come and gone. The NFL Draft. It's literally at the end of this month. We're about 20 days away or so. And one of the teams that's going to be, or one of the players for Tennessee that's going to be selected by a team later this month is going to be quarterback Joe Milton. Will he be the first Tennessee player drafted? No, that'll be Jalen Wright. Will Joe Milton be the second? Potentially. I think Kamal Haddon will probably be the second Tennessee player drafted, but Joe Milton's going to be drafted. And I thought, you know, we talked about the pro day last week. It was last Wednesday, and Joe Milton balled out. He had a really, really strong pro day, throwing in shorts, throwing routes on air, you know, showing off his arm strength, showing off his tight spiral, showing off his ability to stand in the pocket, showing off his 6'5", 235 pound frame. He had a really good day, and he had a really good day at the NFL Combine as well when he did the same thing. So this pre-draft season has been for Joe Milton. This is when he shined. Will it be enough, though, to make him a mid-round pick? Will it be enough to maybe propel him to a late day 2 or an early day 3 pick? I don't know. We'll see. I still am under the impression that some team out there, NFL personnel, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, is going to say, okay, he might not be the face of our franchise, but I can work with him. And when our, XYZ quarterback is done in 2 years when he's off his contract, maybe Milton can step in and be the guy. You're not going to draft him to be the face of your franchise, but I still believe that someone's going to just go goo-goo, gaga over his physical traits and say, I see the tape, I've watched his film, I know his limitations, but I can work with him. He can work in our system, and maybe he can lead us to the promised land when our current quarterback, his contract expires or retires or whatever the case is. So I think someone's going to take him in the mid-rounds. I do. I mean, there's just too much potential there. And I get it. Tennessee fans, we heard about the potential for years and years and years, and we got a so-so product. I recognize that. Or, maybe a little bit more than a so-so product. Again, I went on a tangent on yesterday's show about how he was one of Tennessee's better quarterbacks in the last 10, 15 years, and I agree with that. I stand by that. But in terms of what he can be, there's just so much potential there, and I think that's going to lead him to be drafted in the mid-rounds. Now, ESPN differs from me in this opinion. They know more than me. I'm not going to act like I know more, but they know more than me in terms of kind of how this is going to go about. No mock draft is ever perfect. one mispick can change a mock draft completely. That's why we love mock drafts. But the NFL draft analysts and reporters put together a quarterback mock draft over at ESPN.com earlier this week, and they mocked the first 12 quarterbacks and where they're going to go in the NFL draft. This one differs for me completely. I still think Joe Milton has a chance to be a mid-rounder. Now, that's third or fourth. I don't know. We'll see. Won't surprise me if he's a fifth or a sixth round pick, because that's where he should be picked. But I think somebody's just going to take a chance on him. According to this mock draft over there at ESPN.com, they don't believe that. Joe Milton is the 10th quarterback selected in this quarterback mock draft, according to ESPN.com, going to the Buffalo Bills in the 6th round with the 200th overall pick. This is what they have to say about Joe Milton. Like Spencer Rattler of South Carolina, Milton is a pick that would primarily be based on a ton of potential upside rather than what he has shown so far. Milton has one of the strongest arms in football, perhaps the strongest arm we've seen in the last decade or so. Because Buffalo has two solid quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Mitchell Trubisky, it would make a good landing spot for someone like Milton, who will likely need some time to develop. That might just be the ticket for Tennessee's Joe Milton. A team like Buffalo, I don't hate it at all. Why? Because Josh Allen is huge. Josh Allen is a big NFL quarterback. Joe Milton is a big college quarterback. So I'm not saying Joe Milton, I mean, sure, he compares to Josh Allen in many, many ways. Strong arm, big body frame. Josh Allen, I think, is more mobile, can make a whole lot more, plays on the run. And we've seen that throughout the start of his NFL career over the last, 4 or 5 years. I don't think Joe Milton will ever be as good as Josh Allen, but I do like the comparison. And I think if he goes to a team like Buffalo, who has a quarterback similar to Joe Milton's game, and that's Josh Allen, then it's kind of a seamless transition into the offense, into the culture, into the offensive meeting room and all that. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. But do I think Joe Milton's going to slide all the way to the 6th round to pick number 200 overall? Maybe. Again, that's probably where he should. I just think maybe Buffalo, maybe another team will jump up and take a chance on him in the 3rd or the 4th round. We will see. If Joe Milton is the 10th quarterback in this mock draft, who's behind him? And who are those quarterbacks in front of him that maybe we can debate Joe Milton should be in front of? Well, let's start from behind. Behind Joe Milton in this mock draft, quarterbacks 11 and 12. Quarterback 11 is Jordan Travis of Florida State, being mocked to the Arizona Cardinals at pick number 226 overall. And then the last quarterback in this exercise is Sam Hartman to the New York Jets at pick number 257. The picks in front of Joe Milton include, let's start at the top. This exercise has 4 quarterbacks going in the top 4 picks, which I can see that happening. Caleb Williams of USC going to the Chicago Bears. That's kind of the popular assumption, right? Especially since Justin Fields got dealt this offseason. Jaden Daniels is now picking up steam to be the number 2 overall quarterback pick. Of course, LSU Heisman Trophy winner going to the Washington Commanders at number 2. The New England Patriots are mocked to take Drake May of North Carolina at number 3, and I think a lot of his game will easily translate to the NFL for sure. And maybe that'll be the Patriots, maybe it won't. But in this exercise, Drake May of UNC goes to the Patriots at number 3. And then at number 4, and this is the one I have the biggest question about, J.J. McCarthy is mocked to go to the Minnesota Vikings at number 4. Remember Minnesota, they brought in Sam Darnold, and they might bridge Sam Darnold to a pick in 2025 or a free agent signing in 2025, or they can pick a quarterback early in the 1st round and try to work him in there. If you're the Minnesota Vikings, do you really want to do that with J.J. McCarthy? Do you really want to do that at number 4 with J.J. McCarthy? I understand your season's probably going to go down the tube next year because you have Sam Darnold as your starting quarterback, but do you really want to take the 4th overall pick and make it J.J. McCarthy? I wouldn't. That's just me. J.J. McCarthy picked up a whole lot of steam. There was a lot of talk about J.J. McCarthy over there at FanDuel and some other books. The odds were going up for him to be the number 2 quarterback taken. However, I think he's the Will Levis of this year's draft class. A lot of hype, a lot of intrigue, but I think J.J. McCarthy's going to slide, and that's just my opinion. But in this exercise, you have the Minnesota Vikings, the number 4 overall, taking J.J. McCarthy behind Drake May at 3 to the Patriots, Jaden Daniels 2 to the Commanders, and Caleb Williams 1 to the Bears. Just outside the top 10 in this mock draft, the Denver Broncos take Bo Nix of Oregon. Good player. I know he's grown. I'm not saying he can't get better, but Bo Nix in the SEC was like great value brand. Bo Nix in the Pac-12 was really, really good. So I'm intrigued to see how that transition to the NFL goes. Is it worth a first-round pick? I don't know. So then there's a big gap, and you go all the way towards the end of the second, or midway through the second round, and the New York Giants are going to take Michael Penix Jr. in this mock draft. I'm not a fan of quarterbacks going in the second round, but I think Michael Penix Jr. would be that guy. Let's see here, the 6th quarterback taken in this mock draft is Spencer Rattler, of course, of South Carolina. They have him going number 3rd round, 77th overall pick. Michael Pratt of Tulane is next in the 5th round at pick number 150 to the Saints. Austin Reed of Western Kentucky is then taken by the Rams in the 6th round, pick number 196, and that comes in right before Joe Milton, pick number 200 in the 6th round to the Buffalo Bills. Could Joe Milton be taken ahead of Austin Reed of Western Kentucky, ahead of Michael Pratt of Tulane, simply because of potential? Absolutely. I think he would probably file right behind Spencer Rattler in most mock drafts, but not according to this one. So it's going to be intriguing. We got about a little over 3 weeks left until we see the NFL draft. We'll hear a lot of buzz about quarterbacks specifically. And if there's a run on quarterbacks in the 1st round or in the 3rd round, that will affect Joe Milton. So I'm intrigued to see kind of how this plays out. But I would say I would have Joe Milton probably at quarterback number 7. I think that's about right, quarterback number 7, especially in front of Michael Pratt and Austin Reed. But that's just me. So I wanted to bring this onto the pod. Obviously, it's pretty interesting when you kind of see these conversations leading up towards the draft. And we don't have much time left. The NFL draft is about 21 days away, 3 weeks away. And wherever Jalen Wright, wherever Joe Milton, wherever Kamal Haddon and maybe McCallum Castles or anybody else goes, we will talk about it. We'll analyze it, all that and more right here on Locked On Vols. Hey, when we come back, we're going to get your baseball preview set. Tennessee at Auburn coming up this weekend. Your number 5 Tennessee Volunteers. We'll tell you what to expect on the Plains. That's coming up next as we continue on with Locked On Vols. All right, guys, I want to tell you about our friends and a proud sponsor of the show and of the Locked On Podcast Network, and that is Gametime. Right now, if you put in the promo code at Gametime on the Gametime app, Locked On College, you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. That is Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase over at the Gametime app. What is the Gametime app? It is an app that you can download and find the cheapest tickets out there to any event in your area, not just sporting events, but concerts. I love to use the example of Thompson Bowling Arena at the Food City Center because not only do the Lady Vols and men's basketball team play there, but tons of concerts throughout the year, monster truck rallies. I mean, it feels like there's an event going on at TBA, at FCC almost every single weekend. And, there was a concert there just last night, in fact. And you can find tickets to that concert, and the concert's coming up next over on the Gametime app. When I use the Gametime app, I often go on other apps and other websites to see if I can find a cheaper ticket because they have a lowest price guarantee where they're going to match it if you find a cheaper ticket. I can never find a cheaper ticket. Gametime simply always has the lowest tickets available. And they're also for the procrastinators like me, maybe. Even up to an hour after the event starts, you can buy tickets on the Gametime app for that event. So I encourage you today, download the Gametime app. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime, download the app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We're going to continue on and finish off a Friday edition of Locked On Vols. That's coming up next. All right, guys, welcome back into your final episode, your final segment of this week's Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here, making Locked On Vols as always your first listen. A lot of baseball questions, a A lot of people wanting to discuss some baseball, and you guys know me, I'll do that. It's obviously the slow period of the sports calendar, especially for the college sports calendar as well now. So we're going to do that. I'm going to give you a quick little brief preview into this weekend and why this is important. Listen, guys, if Tennessee wasn't ranked in the top 5, top 6, top 7, I wouldn't be spending a couple segments a week on baseball. But I mean, guys, think about it. I mean, I've got 15 segments a week, and I'm devoting about 2 of those to baseball, and I think they deserve it. You look across the national rankings this week, Tennessee is a consensus top 5 team. And I personally think that Tennessee's overranked in that regard. D1 Baseball is what I follow. They have Tennessee at number 4. USA Today Baseball's got Tennessee at number 5. National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association has Tennessee at number 5. Perfect Game, Baseball America. I mean, Tennessee is a consensus top 5 team. And I think that's a little too high. I would have Tennessee somewhere around 6 or 7 because I have questions about the bullpen and if Tennessee will have enough pitching to survive a regional and a super regional postseason play. But nonetheless, Tennessee's a really good team. Tennessee's got a great lineup, and Tennessee's got bats that can carry them. And that's what you've seen the last 2 weekends in series victories against Ole Miss and series victories against Georgia. Georgia was a really good team in terms of the lineup, whole lot of bats. And Tennessee got punched in the mouth, got knocked out on Friday night. They lost 16-2, but then responded in a major way on Saturday, coming from behind, winning 16-11 in a slugfest, and then actually blanking Georgia 7-0 in Sunday's Game 3. So this weekend, going back on the road, and teams in the SEC have played really, really well at home this year. And that's going to be a challenge for Tennessee because anytime you go on the road in this league is difficult, but really the numbers through 3 league series this year, the home teams have been really, really good. In Auburn, you look at the record, and don't be fooled. Auburn's record is 16-11 and 1-8 in conference play. You see that and you're like, oh, well, that's a bad baseball team. Nah, don't be fooled. Okay, they have opened up their first 3 weekends of SEC play against number 7 Vanderbilt. This is current rankings. Number 7 Vanderbilt, number 1 Arkansas, and number 3 Texas A&M. Life in the SEC. SEC baseball truly does just mean more. SEC football is scared to play a 9-game conference schedule. I don't know if I want to say that about them, but SEC baseball, it does mean more. More on that on another episode, I'm sure. But they've been challenged. That being Auburn, they've been challenged out of the gate, big time, and they've lost 3 games by 1 run. They've lost 2 more games by 2 runs. So in 5 of their losses in SEC play, they've lost by 2 or fewer runs. I mean, they've been in pretty much every game this year. They were preseason picked to finish 5th in the SEC West, probably about on pace there. But D1 Baseball did project them, Auburn, as a regional team this year. So again, the record's not where it needs to be. But this is a much dangerous team than the record would indicate, especially in the lineup. Pitching is abysmal, and I'll get to that here in a moment. But having said all that, you look ahead to what's coming up. You got LSU, and another example, LSU defending national champs. They have a 2-7 record in conference right now. They are much better than 2-7. But you got LSU coming up next. You got Kentucky coming up the week after that. Later on in the season, you're going to Florida, you're going to Vanderbilt. You have some big series ahead. So even though Auburn is much better than 1-8, that's no excuse. You need to win this series. You need to win 2 games out of 3. You need to sweep them. You need to be stacking up some wins and improve on your 5-4 mark in SEC play so far. Remember, in SEC play, if you finish with a 14-16 conference record, typically that gets you into a regional. The SEC is that tough. You finish with a 500 record, you're solid. 1 game over, you're great. You're in the conversation of hosting, so on and so forth. So the bats, the lineup for Auburn, which is really, really solid. You've got Cooper McMurray, first baseman, cleanup hitter, leading the team with 11 home runs, 371 batting average. He's a really good player. Ike Irish, sophomore, catcher now, was a DH last year, catcher, outfielder. He hits second in the order. He's second on the team with 10 home runs, 363 batting average. He leads the team with 45 runs driven in. Ike Irish, pretty good player. Left fielder Mason Manners, hitting 340 on the season. Transfer shortstop Cooper Weiss, the everyday shortstop. He's hitting 319 at the plate. He's walked 27 times, so he gets on base. And when he gets on base, he's a nuisance. He's stolen 24 of 27 base attempts this year. He is a really, really good player, so Tennessee's going to have to watch out for him. And there's some other guys as well, but those are kind of the big ones. Mason Manners, Cooper Weiss, Ike Irish, and Cooper McMurray. Not as good as Georgia's lineup hitting-wise, but pretty daggone good. The pitching's been a disaster. They've had so many different guys kind of mix in and mix out of that weekend rotation. In fact, they're going to have a brand new Friday night starter coming up tonight. And that's a guy by the name of Dylan Watts, who is going to make his first start of the season. In 8 appearances, he has a 2.77 ERA and a 0-0 record. Dylan Watts is going to get the ball first, but you look at last weekend's rotation for Auburn. Cooper McBride, former midweek guy, shifted into this Friday night role the last 2 weekends. He won't do that tonight, but he'll pitch at some point. 3-1 record, 4.21 ERA. Not bad. But look at the Saturday and Sunday starters from last weekend for Auburn. Chase Alsop, 1-2 record, 7.02 ERA. Joseph Gonzalez, 2-1 record, 7.91 ERA. Starting pitching has been abysmal. And again, they've also started guys like Cooper Myers, Christian Herboltz, John Armstrong. I mean, they've started so many different combination of pitchers this year. So this weekend is going to be no different. Tennessee needs to take advantage. Tennessee's bats, which is its strength, needs to take advantage. No Billy Amick this weekend, likely. I say he's doubtful. Tony Vitello wouldn't exactly rule him out, but said he probably won't play. He's probably not going to play. No A.J. Russell this weekend. Kavaris Tears is going to be limited with a hamstring issue. But Tennessee still has options up and down that lineup. Dylan Dreiling, Semo, Burke, Dalton Bargo, Reese Chapman, so on and so forth. So really, really looking forward to this weekend to seeing how Tennessee performs on the Plains against Auburn. Top 5 Tennessee baseball team needs to take care of business, and we'll recap the weekend right here at Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and hopefully my voice is better on Monday. I'll rest it this weekend, I promise. Appreciate you guys, as always, for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Couldn't do it without you. Everydayers, y'all are the best. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you on Monday, everybody. This is Locked On Vols.